In 2025, Elon Musk America is launching rockets to Mars, while millions of its citizens are quietly settling into the back seats of their cars. The contradiction is jarring. A nation celebrated for innovation now leads in invisible homelessness. Unlike the tent encampments that draw headlines, vehicle dwellers exist in legal gray zones, parked along curbs, behind warehouses, or in quiet neighborhoods, unseen and uncounted.
Don't get fooled by the label. Subscribe now to uncover what's really behind your favorite brands. And get the truth Big Food doesn't want you to see.
They're not drifters or dropouts. They're school teachers, delivery drivers, nurses. People with jobs, routines, and dreams, living in vans because rent now outpaces income in cities like Los Angeles and Seattle. What was once a symbol of freedom has become a last refuge from a housing system that no longer works. This isn't about fringe lifestyles or wanderlust. It's a symptom of a systemic collapse. Stagnant wages, runaway rents, and punitive urban policies that prioritize optics over equity. Sleeping in a car isn't a choice when the alternative is jail time for pitching a tent. While city ordinances criminalize outdoor homelessness, they silently funnel the displaced into vehicles, pushing them out of sight and off official records. These people don't qualify for aid, don't show up in data, and don't fit into any policy box. But they are rapidly becoming the face of a new economic class, employed, mobile, and houseless. The question now isn't when this ends, it's how far it will spread. In 2025, the wealthiest country in the world is facing a crisis that most politicians are too afraid to admit even exists. While Washington argues over tax cuts and defense budgets, millions of Americans are sleeping in their cars, vans, and RVs, not by choice, but because traditional housing has simply become unaffordable. This isn't some fringe phenomenon. This isn't a quirky lifestyle trend. It's a national emergency, happening right now. Let's stop pretending that this is just a personal decision or an alternative way of life. For a growing number of Americans, vehicle living is survival. It's not a choice. It's what you do when rent takes more than half your paycheck, when wages haven't kept up with inflation, when medical bills drown your savings, and when shelters are full or unsafe. It's what happens when a so-called American dream is not just broken, but actively rigged against you. While billionaires launch rockets and Silicon Valley floods billions into AI startups, working families in Los Angeles, New York, Seattle, and beyond are quietly converting their backseats into bedrooms. Some hold full-time jobs. Some are raising kids. Some are disabled. Many were homeowners just a few years ago. Now, they're invisible, living in Target parking lots, down side streets, behind blackout curtains, hoping the cops don't knock on their window. This crisis is a direct result of systemic failure. Rent is rising 5 times faster than wages. In major cities, average monthly rent is now equivalent to the cost of a used car. A single-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles can cost more than $3,000 a month, if you can even find one. In places like New York, landlords demand proof of income that's 3 or 4 times the monthly rent. That's not affordability. That's exclusion. It's a soft form of economic exile, forcing people out of traditional housing and into whatever shelter they can manage. And when people fall through the cracks, the system doesn't catch them, it hides them. The U.S. government tracks homelessness through shelter populations and visible street encampments. But if you're living in a car, a garage, an RV parked on the outskirts of town, you're not counted. You don't exist. That means no aid, no support, no targeted services. Just more isolation, more struggle, more Americans slipping into the shadows of a system that refuses to acknowledge them. This is a rise of the middle homeless, a term that should never have to exist. These aren't just the chronically unemployed or those with severe mental health struggles, though they need support too. We're talking about nurses, teachers, construction workers, gig economy drivers, people who make your coffee or deliver your groceries. They have jobs. They pay taxes. But they're locked out of housing markets because of sky-high rents, crushing student loans, or surprise medical debt. One illness, one eviction, one paycheck missed, and the floor falls out from beneath them. And if you think that's bad, look at how cities are responding. Not with empathy, not with affordable housing investments, but with policies designed to criminalize poverty. In city after city, local governments have passed laws that ban outdoor sleeping, clear homeless encampments, and aggressively police public spaces. They call it cleaning up the streets. But what it really means is sweeping vulnerable people out of sight, pushing them from sidewalks into vehicles, and from vehicles into legal gray zones where they can't park, can't rest, and can't be seen. These laws don't solve homelessness. They displace it, and in doing so, they've fueled a shadow economy of mobile living. An entire population living on wheels because the system gave them no other choice. It's a survival strategy wrapped in a legal contradiction. A car is personal property, so it's technically not camping, but it's not housing either. So most support systems won't help you. You fall between the cracks. And that's exactly where the system leaves you. As this population grows, so does the risk of normalization. There are now urban planners and local governments discussing designated residential parking zones for vehicle dwellers, not because of the step toward permanent housing, but because they know this problem isn't going away. It's a Band-Aid for a bullet wound. And it shows just how far we've slid from the basic idea that every person deserves a roof over their head that doesn't have wheels and a steering wheel attached. The line between poverty and so-called normal life is thinner than it's ever been. And when a used van becomes a last safe haven for someone working a full-time job, we're not just facing a housing crisis. We're facing a moral collapse, one that redefines what it means to have a home. One that turns garages and Walmart parking lots into neighborhoods. One that quietly replaces long-term stability with short-term survival. And the worst part? This trend is accelerating, not declining, accelerating. Without aggressive intervention, mobile living could become a permanent feature of American life. In just a few years, we could see entire communities built around RV parks and car lots, populated not by retirees or travelers, but by working families, gig workers, and displaced middle-class Americans who've been priced out of the American dream. This is the future we're heading toward if we don't change course. A future where being housed is a privilege, not a right. Where community is mobile, fragile, and temporary. Where stability is elusive, and every night's sleep depends on whether you can find a legal place to park. Where a flat tire or an expired registration could mean the loss of your entire home. Let's be absolutely clear. This isn't about personal responsibility. It's about systemic injustice. You can work hard. You can follow the rules. You can do everything right. And still end up behind the wheel with your life packed into boxes in the backseat. Because the economy no longer rewards effort. It punishes vulnerability. And the safety nets we were told would be there, they're either gone or never really existed in the first place. So what does that say about us as a country? About our values? We spend billions on luxury developments, stadiums, and military equipment, but we can't ensure that the people cleaning our hotel rooms and delivering our takeout have a safe place to sleep. That's not freedom. That's not prosperity. That's collapse, dressed up in denial. And no, this isn't just a West Coast problem. Cities in the Midwest and South are starting to see the same patterns. Rising rents, vanishing affordable housing, more vehicles doubling as homes. It's a national crisis, and yet it's barely being addressed in national politics. Where are the emergency housing plans? Where are the protections for renters? Where's the accountability for landlords who treat property like monopoly money while families are forced into cars? The truth is, this isn't a crisis waiting to happen. It's a crisis already here. And it's only going to get worse unless we admit what's happening and act, because this isn't just about homes on wheels. It's about the very structure of American society, about how we define dignity, about whether we believe everyone deserves a place to rest their head that doesn't come with engine trouble and parking tickets. If you've ever said, "That could never be me," you're already closer than you think. One medical emergency, one rent hike, one round of layoffs. That's all it takes. And when that day comes, will we still pretend that homelessness only happens to other people? Or will we finally see that the problem isn't the people in the cars? It's the policies, the priorities, and the profit-driven housing system that put them there? This is the new face of homelessness in America. And it's not just tragic, it's a disgrace. If you believe this issue needs national attention, share this video. Like it Comment with your thoughts and stories. Subscribe for more coverage that cuts through the noise. Because staying silent isn't an option, not when millions are living on four wheels in the shadow of a broken system. Here's the part no politician wants to talk about. These aren't the people they thought would end up homeless. This isn't a stereotype they can dismiss with a soundbite or a budget line item. These are people who use a vote, who use to own homes, who used to pay into the very system that now pretends they don't exist. They're the teacher who can't afford rent near the school where she works. They're the Amazon warehouse worker who packs your orders but sleeps in the parking lot. They're the elderly couple living off Social Security in a rusting RV because their retirement savings evaporated with one medical emergency. These are the forgotten Americans, and there are millions of them. And yet, when cities do act, what do they focus on? Not providing affordable housing, not rent relief, not mental health services, or wage increases. No, what they do instead is unleash police departments to clear out encampments, impound vehicles, hand out fines to people who already can't pay rent, and slap no overnight parking signs on every inch of curb space. It's an orchestrated campaign to make the crisis less visible, not less devastating. And let's be brutally honest, it's all about aesthetics. As long as homelessness is hidden behind tinted windows and parked quietly down some industrial road, the system can keep pretending it's not failing. But it is failing on every level. And what does that failure look like? It looks like a single mom brushing her teeth in a gas station bathroom before dropping her kids off at school. It looks like a college student doing homework in the back of a Prius with a Wi-Fi hotspot. It looks like a retired veteran cooking dinner on a portable stove in the front seat of a Dodge Caravan. These stories aren't rare anymore. They're becoming the norm. Because in 2025, the cost of being poor isn't just financial. It's existential. It's the cost of your dignity, of your sense of self. It's having to explain to your kid why you can't invite friends over after school. It's lying awake at night, not because you're unsafe, but because you're worried someone might knock on your window and tell you to move again. It's counting coins at a gas station to keep the car warm enough to survive the night. And all the while, politicians on both sides of the aisle continue to pat themselves on the back for economic growth. But who's growing? The top 1%? Landlords? Corporate developers? Because the people living in their cars aren't seeing any of that so-called growth. They're watching the middle class erode in real time. They're watching wages stagnate while inflation eats away every dollar. They're watching affordable housing disappear under luxury condo towers and Airbnb empires. And they're being told by lawmakers, by media pundits, by disconnected elites that this is somehow normal. Well, it's not normal, and it's not acceptable. When living in a car becomes the best-case scenario for millions of working people, that's not innovation. That's collapse. When the richest country in the world can send satellites to Mars but can't provide shelter for its citizens, that's not a mystery. It's a moral failure. A choice. Because that's what this is. A choice. Not by the people living in vans and sedans and minivans, but by the people in power. They've chosen to ignore this crisis. Chosen to defund housing assistance. Chosen to protect landlords over renters. Chosen to turn police departments into housing policy enforcers. And chosen to pretend that if they just criminalize visibility, they can erase responsibility. But the truth has wheels, and it's parked in every major city across this country. This is the real State of the Union in 2025. Not the sound bites, not the spin, not the bloated, self-congratulatory State of the Union speeches filled with empty promises and job statistics that ignore reality on the ground. The real State of the Union is this. We have redefined homelessness. We've moved the goalpost so far that we now call a lifestyle choice when someone has no other option. And still there are no safety nets. There are no incentives to build low-income housing. There's no accountability for corporate landlords driving up rents. There's no public reckoning for decades of failed urban planning, zoning laws that exclude the working class, or mental health systems that were gutted and never rebuilt. There's just silence and more cleanup sweeps to sanitize the problem. But here's the ugly truth. The more we ignore this crisis, the more we normalize it. Think about that right now. In neighborhoods across the country, People are adapting to the idea that mobile living is just another way of life. They're installing solar panels on their car roofs. They're joining Facebook groups for safe parking lots. They're buying gym memberships, not to work out, but to shower. They're surviving, but survival is not success. Survival is not stability. Survival is not a substitute for dignity. And if we continue down this path, what comes next? Zone vehicle housing? Monthly parking rent for van apartments? Insurance policies that cover both car damage and housing displacement? What starts as desperation can easily be repackaged as innovation and sold back to us as if it were progress. But don't be fooled. This isn't progress. This is policy failure wrapped in PR language. This is economic injustice rebranded as flexibility. This is what happens when governments refuse to invest in people and instead invest in the illusion of order. And the consequences go far beyond housing. When people live in cars, they're less likely to get regular medical care, less likely to access government programs, less likely to vote, less likely to stay employed long term. Because life becomes a game of survival, and everything else becomes background noise. And still, millions persist. They go to work. They take care of their families. They attend school. They contribute to society while society turns its back. They show up every day with no guarantee of safety, stability, or even recognition. So here's the question. How long can a country function like this before it breaks? Because this isn't just a housing issue. It's a moral litmus test. It's a question of what kind of society we are and what kind of future we're building. And if we're okay with a future where mobility becomes a synonym for poverty, where the car becomes both your commute and your shelter, then we've lost something far greater than economic security. We've lost the very idea of shared responsibility. And it doesn't have to be this way. We could raise wages. We could freeze rents. We could overhaul zoning laws to allow for mixed-income housing. We could treat housing as a human right, not a speculative investment. We could listen to people actually living this nightmare and design policy with them, not around them. But first, we have to see them. We have to stop pretending this isn't happening. We have to stop treating vehicle dwellers as invisible, as inconvenient, as a footnote in someone else's political speech. These are our neighbors, our coworkers, our classmates, our veterans, our fellow Americans, and they are screaming silently from the driver's seat. The silence is what keeps this crisis alive. It's not the lack of resources. We have the money. It's not the lack of space. We have the land. It's not even the lack of ideas. We have the plans, the experts, the case studies. What we lack is the political will. What we lack is courage. Because let's be clear, solving this isn't some unsolvable riddle. Countries with less wealth and more political instability have managed to provide basic shelter for their people. The United States refuses to, not because it can't, but because it won't. Because housing in America is not a right. It's an asset, a commodity, a business. And in business, there are winners and losers. If you're watching this from the backseat of your car tonight, you already know which side you've been pushed onto. And the people benefiting from this imbalance, they know too. Corporate landlords are snatching up single-family homes like trading cards, jacking up rents, and evicting long-time tenants to make way for higher-income renters. Wall Street owns your neighborhood now. Hedge funds determine whether you can stay in the city you grew up in. And the government, local, state, federal, they've either let it happen or helped along. Meanwhile, you've got city officials congratulating themselves for hosting international conferences on urban design while their own residents are sleeping in parking garages. You got tech executives calling themselves disruptors while their employees live in company lots in $60,000 Teslas because rent is out of reach. Even with a six-figure income, you got influencers glamorizing hashtag van life, sanitizing the real story of vehicle living for clicks and brand deals, while real families sit in that same vehicle hoping they don't get ticketed or towed overnight. This is how we hide suffering in plain sight. We rebrand it. We gentrify the narrative. We pretend living in a car is a minimalist dream instead of what it really is, the last stop before the streets. And it keeps spreading. From California to Texas, from Oregon to Florida, there is no region immune. Cities big and small are watching as their working class residents are priced out, pushed out, and then criminalized for trying to stay. And through it all, the people in charge are still asking the wrong questions. They ask, how we clean up this problem, instead of asking, why are so many people being forced into this in the first place? They want to clean up the mess, but not fix the cause. But you can't sweep this one away. You can't legislate poverty out of existence. You can't ignore your way out of inequality. You can't treat visibility as the problem and expect dignity to survive. And yet, there is still so much denial, so much spin, so many press conferences that celebrate progress, while thousands more fall through cracks. The truth is, there's no real progress when families are sleeping in minivans. There's no progress when the only affordable shelter left comes with an engine. There's no progress when millions are locked out of the housing market. Not because they're lazy, but because the system is fundamentally broken. If this continues, the future of America won't be white picket fences and backyard barbecues. It will be RVs lined up along industrial roads, kids doing homework in the glow of dashboard lights, entire communities formed around instability and displacement. That is not a future worth defending. That is not a dream worth selling. If you made it this far, it means you care. It means you see through the noise. And it means you understand that this country is at a turning point. So don't let this story fade into background. Keep it alive. Share this video. Talk about it. Post your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to stay connected. Because the only way we change this system is by refusing to look away and demanding a country that refuses to let anyone fall so far, so fast, that a car becomes the only place left to call home.